Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, medical officials say that at least 43 people have been killed in an airstrike on a market in the northern Ethiopian region of TIGRAY. A humanitarian crisis has been triggered there by months of fighting between federal troops and local forces. Also, former Ivorian Prime Minister and rebel leader Guillaume SORO is sentenced in absentia to life in prison for plotting a coup against President Ouattara. The former allies turned fierce rivals as SORO planned to run in last year's elections. And I speak to afrobeats superstar Mr.Eazi about the rise of sounds from the continent. Global demand for African music and culture has exploded over the last 5 years or so. He gives an insight into the hard work and strategy that's made it so. Now, at least 43 people in the town of Togogo in Ethiopia's Tigray region have reportedly been killed in an airstrike. Although the military has not yet commented on accounts of the attack, residents say that fighting has recently flared around the regional capital of Mekele. Battling between local TPLF fighters and federal troops have also reportedly left several dead in the city of Adigrat. Locals say it's now under control of Eritrean fighters backing government soldiers. Details from the conflict have been difficult to verify ever since battling began last November. But Maria Gerth-Nicolescu brings us more from Addis.
According to humanitarians and health workers on the ground, the airstrike hit the small town of Togoga around midday on Tuesday, killing dozens of civilians and wounding many more. So far, no exact death toll has been established because the area has been extremely difficult to access. In Mekele, Tigray's capital, the main hospital is treating several wounded people, including children, but many more are likely still trapped around Togoga as ambulances have been repeatedly blocked at checkpoints by soldiers. According to a source in Mekele, some health workers were able to cross the checkpoints without ambulances, but have not communicated to their teams since. Several wounded, including a baby, reportedly died because health workers were not able to evacuate them quickly enough. So far, it's unclear whether the attack is attributed to the Ethiopian or the Eritrean army. It comes as Tigrayan forces claim they've retaken several towns and captured thousands of Ethiopian Federal Army soldiers. An Ethiopian military spokesperson denied that soldiers were blocking ambulances, and he also said the government was not targeting civilian populations. Civilians have been very largely impacted by this conflict, which started in November. Shellings of civilian areas, massacres and rapes have been repeatedly reported. Humanitarian organizations are also saying that there's widespread malnutrition in Tigray with even a risk of famine. But the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said on Monday after voting in Ethiopia's election that there was no hunger in Tigray. He's facing increasing criticism for the situation in the Tigray region, but he is accusing the TPLF, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, of being responsible for that situation. The TPLF was designated as a terrorist organization by the Ethiopian parliament last May.
Maria Gerth-Nicolescu there for us. Now, Ivory Coast former Prime Minister has been sentenced in absentia to life in prison by an Ivorian court. He was convicted of plotting a coup in the run-up to 2020 presidential elections, in which he had planned on running as a candidate. Now, that put him on a collision course with his former ally, President Alassane Ouattara. SORO lives in exile, but few know where. Hanan Fenabjani tells us more.
Guillaume SORO was sentenced to life imprisonment on charges of plotting a coup against President Alassane Ouattara. The former Speaker of Parliament, who has been in exile in Europe for 2 years, was sentenced in absentia, charged with conspiracy, an attempted attack on state authority, and disseminating fake news. He has since reacted to the verdict. Guillaume SORO indeed took to Twitter to express his grievances against the Ivorian justice. In a statement titled, "I will not give up the fight," he reiterated what his attorneys had previously stated, that the trial was politically motivated and the verdict rendered to put an end to his political program. His defense has vowed to appeal the decision. The court also handed 20-year prison sentences to several of Guillaume SORO's close associates for participating in a coup plot, ordered the dissolution of his political party, the GPS, and the confiscation of his assets. The decision seals a long-standing feud feud between President Alassane Ouattara and former rebel leader Guillaume SORO, who served as Prime Minister and Speaker of Parliament under Ouattara. The two men later fell out, according to observers, as SORO's presidential ambitions grew. Now it seems unlikely that Guillaume SORO will return to Ivory Coast anytime soon.
Well, Southern African Regional Group SADC has agreed to send in a military force to Mozambique to rein in a deepening jihadist insurgency there. It's been escalating in the northern Cabo Delgado province since extremists began attacks in 2017. And the violence has cost thousands of lives and forced over 800,000 from their homes. The government's under-resourced security forces have struggled to respond. It's not yet clear how big a SADC force might be or how long it would be deployed in Mozambique for, but earlier this year, a leaked document from the organisation did recommend sending in around 3,000 troops. Well, the World Food Programme's warned that communities in Madagascar are being forced to walk for hours a day to get food from distribution points because of a devastating drought. The crisis is the worst the south of the country's seen in 4 decades. Nicolas Chemin with more.
In Madagascar, according to the UN, 14,000 people are currently victims of a famine, and more than 1 million are facing severe food insecurity. The main cause of this disaster is drought. In the south of the country, families are desperate. Some remote villages were missed by the early warning system, and the coronavirus made the situation worse. It forced schools to close and thus meant children missed the main meal of the day. The UN's World Food Programme estimates that it needs $78 million to tackle this crisis.
We're facing the worst drought in over 40 years. And this is an area where people depend on their own agriculture. But with drought, back to back to back, people can't survive. And so the government, partnering with the World Food Programme and others, we're doing the best we can. But it's a terrible situation.
The government says it's improving roads that lead to the most remote villages. But Madagascar's main problem is that, according to experts, it's one of the countries in the world that is being the most affected by climate change.
Well, it's exam time for students across the continent. One private university in Burkina Faso, though, has been trying to raise the bar for the conditions in which young people in Africa study. But that does come with some pretty strict rules and some very high expectations, as our correspondent, Kalidou C, reports.
It's 7:55 a.m. in Ouagadougou. Every Monday morning, these young men and women line up like soldiers and sing the national anthem as the national flag is raised. Students at the IAM Ouaga campus follow a strict dress code, and there's zero tolerance for latecomers, particularly during exams.
On est à cheval sur la rigueur. Vous voyez que ce matin, tous ceux qui sont venus en retard n'ont pas été acceptés dans la cour de l'école. Ce qui différencie IAM des autres universités, c'est que nous formons des hommes et des femmes de qualité capables d'impulser le développement au Burkina Faso et en Afrique.
When Ahmed Diallo created the IAM University in 2007, his ambition was to create a Pan-African institution that changed regional standards. Today, the IAM welcomes 1,500 students of 17 African nationalities in an ultra-modern American-style campus. In the school's corridors, students can consult their timetable on a tablet. Students' comfort isn't sacrificed. There's also a gym and a pool.
J'ai choisi IAM parce que IAM forme des cadres et les cours se déroulent normalement, pas de grève ici. Une des choses que j'ai appris déjà, c'est la ponctualité. Et depuis que je suis à IAM, je viens toujours à l'heure.
but the IAM remains an exception. Most public universities in Burkina Faso are overcrowded and rely on dilapidated infrastructure, making it difficult for students and professors to work.
Vous êtes dans un amphithéâtre devant 1500 étudiants avec un micro à la main pour donner le cours. Il est clair que ce n'est pas la même chose que lorsque vous êtes dans une salle avec 50, 100 personnes. C'est clair. Même pour les étudiants qui suivent le cours, c'est clair que ce n'est pas la même chose.
In Burkina Faso, nearly 80% of universities are state-run. However, more teachers are drawn to private institutions where there are 4 times fewer students and better conditions for both faculty and learners.
And finally, if you're keen on a behind-the-scenes look at the workings of Africa's booming music industry, the continent's first Pan-African digital music symposium is being held this week. Amongst the biggest names who will be heading online for MIDEM Africa to dissect the huge global growth in demand for and appreciation of African music will be stars like Femi Kuti, Davido, Yemi Alade, and Mr.Eazi. Now, earlier I asked him why the international rise of Afrobeat is here to stay.
Is here to stay. If you speak about raga or dancehall, hip-hop, you see that what enshrines the longevity is the culture. So it's not just a style of music. You know, even if you think about reggaeton, it's not just a style. It's not just sonically, but it's the sonics plus the entire culture. And with Afrobeats, you see it in, you know, the culture, the languages, the dance, hugely the dance, you know, the flow, the dressing, the lingo. And so I feel like it's more of a cultural, movement than just a sonic movement. And so, you know, human beings were nothing but culture, and I think it's gonna stay. And you know, the world is gonna get to listen to more and more artists from across Africa with different sounds.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa, but I'll leave you with the sounds of Mr.Eazi to show you just why he's such a spot-on spokesperson. The sounds from the continent. Take care.
I know they carry posts, I got bullion. Well, if you give me dance, you go chop deep. Baby girl, I got billions. Oh, yeah, give me chance, make you chop deep. I should do the Al-Qaeda.
France 24, your economy explained. Liberté, égalité, actualité.